entertainment that he will expose is humor, which is more in demand today than ever before. Humor can create a polite smile to the belly laugh and everything in between. The purpose of his entertainment today is to present ideas in the spirit of fun. However, the primary purpose is not to provide insight and deep understanding, but to engage the audience in an interesting diversion. Year out on the limb is Perry Carter. I've got to be me, I've got to be me. Perry Carter. Let's go.
Well, here I am. I'm here. Got up about 4 o'clock this morning and wanted to go over my speech because I didn't go to bed last night feeling great about it. So I sat down, I read through it, and I said, you know, as far as humor goes, this sucks. So I looked and I said, what am I going to do with this? I just don't feel great about it. So I decided in a hump I was going to take the speech and throw it away. So my wife looked in the room and I told her what I was getting ready to do. She said, you crazy. Let me get out of here. And when I threw the speech, I hit my dog and he sort of had this look, you are crazy. This is 4 o'clock in the morning. Well, what I did last week, I did a lot of reading about what it is to be funny, because some people are just naturally funny. I got a friend, for example, I was talking to him and I said, man, it was hot last week. He says, it was hot. It was so hot, I saw a dog chasing a cat and they were walking. And so I wish I had that in me where I could just pop them off like that. But what I find is these funny people have a persona that they really work on. And I said, well, who am I? How can I improve my humor by being some sort of a persona? So I thought of this song by the great humanitarian Sammy Davis Jr. And it goes, whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong, whether I find a place in this world or never belong, I've gotta be me, I've gotta be me. What else can I be but what I am? So I said, what we gotta do is we gotta take this whole humor thing, take it apart, and let's look at all the different levels of it. Well, first there's the physical part. This is a pyramid. This physical part is like sort of the end, and it really basically goes, and you notice once I hit him, it got really funny. And we had some great physical comedians. Dick Van Dyke, he'd go into the room and somehow when people fall or do something, it's funny. My favorites were actually the Three Stooges. And you ever see somebody fall? They're on the snow, they're walking, and they do a kabam! Somehow it's pretty funny. You don't want to tell them it's funny, but it gets pretty funny. So the physical humor is the most basic kind of humor, and a kind that you can always kind of depend on. In fact, men like it a little bit more than women. When the men see they say, do it again! While the women say, how crass, how caveman, like how prehistoric. So when you see the Three Stooges on, you'll usually find a bunch of men watching it. And then there's just the level ahead of that is obscenity. And this is one that you really have to tread carefully. We have some great obscene comedians, for example. You have your George Carlin, who tells you shouldn't say or and then you have your Richard Pryor, who actually uses it in his material. Reminds me of the story, because I'll tell you, with the obscenity, you really have to walk that line very carefully. But I heard this story about this kid who got sent home from school, and on the note that he brought home, the teacher said, "You got to tell little Johnny a few things because he doesn't know the difference between male and female." So she got up, she said, "Come up to the room, let's talk." She said, "Johnny, I want you to take off my shoes." Johnny took off the shoes. "Johnny, take off my stockings." Johnny took off her stockings. "Johnny, take off my blouse." Then she said, "Johnny, I don't want you ever to dress in my clothes and go to school again." Now, there were some of you that had some really bad things going through your head. Well, obscenity is really just the level before the physical. And then there's the storyline. Great storyline comedians. Goes back to our great storytellers. Your Will Rogers. You've got, in today's age, your Bill Cosby. I thought, and I was looking on the internet the other day, and I saw a story by Bill Cosby where he was talking about people smoking to get high. College students smoking, getting around, and he was saying the noises and contortions and whatnot that they made. And he was saying, who on earth would ever want to smoke that? And while this guy's, some guy says, "Hey man, can you pass that over here?" And we have language. Some of the great language people. We have Groucho Marx, for example. Groucho is dancing with this woman, and she says, "Closer, closer." Groucho says, "If I get any closer, I'll be behind you." Groucho also goes up to a person who just faints. He feels their arm and says, "Either my watch is stopped or this person is dead." And the great Archie Bunker, he says, "I'm not going to any Roman Catholic church. Listen to some priest with a lot of mumbo jumbo spreading incest all over everybody." The next level above that is imitation. And you can either do an imitation of a person, which I'm not terribly good at. You have to have a pretty good ear. Or you can do an imitation of a type of person. Do an imitation of a particular person. Like, I think I do Elvis Presley pretty good. Like, "Whoa, mommy, to the 40 show. Nobody do so.
Wow.
Go, go, go. Step on my blue suede shoe." I can't do anything funny about it unless you consider that funny. But I can do a little bit of Elvis. Then there is a kind of person. And it reminds me of when I took my first trip to Chicago. And I was standing there waiting for the bus. And this drunk guy comes up to me. I can do a drunk guy somewhat good. I have a little experience in that area. This drunk guy comes up to me and says, "Can you tell me where Lincoln Street is?" I said, "Oh. What about Grand Street?" "Never heard of it, sir." "Allen Street." "Don't know." He says, "Damn, baby, we both lost." And then there's the contradiction, which is we're getting really high up there. And a contradiction for a speaker would be Bin Laden doing stand-up comedy at a club in downtown Tel Aviv. or Al Sharpton doing the keynote speaker or being the keynote speaker at the Republican National Convention. These are obvious contradictions. And the highest that we can go, and it requires a lot of connection between the individual and the listener. It's at the very highest level of comedy, and that is satire. Satire goes after somebody. You have to pick somebody and you have to take them out. Sharp. And if you're not going to be able to go after them, then keep satire to yourself, because it just won't work. For example, when the Professor Gates came out from his meeting with the beer meeting, that is with the sergeant and the president, and asked him, "What do you think of the sergeant?" He said, "I think he's a pretty nice guy when he's not arresting me." And there is a thing with, they say, the post office. Why do they fly their flag at half-mast? They say, there must be openings. So all in all, it's just a roadmap for you. There's 7 key steps. Physical, obscenity, storyline, language, imitation, contradiction, and satire. And between one of those, maybe as you give your suggestions, say which one do you think I fall in? And that kind of gives me a sort of guide as to where I go next in my attempts at humor. Because I'll go it alone. That's how it must be. I can't be fun for someone else if I can't be fun for me. I gotta be free. I gotta be free. Daring to die, which I did a little bit of, to do it or die.